Okay, I've got a little 2-point perspective grid here underneath that we'll use. I made this using the Brewer method. So I've slipped down a couple of pages and I'll start reviewing the XYZ section drawing points from this chapter. So let's start out by drawing a simple XYZ shape. So let's go, let's see, I'm going to make this my baseline. That'll be the center line on the ground. And remember, you can draw any views you like. You could start with the top view, you could start with the side view. I'm going to probably start with the side view here. So I'm going to say here's the limit to the front of our object, and I'll use this guideline for the top. So first I'm just defining a plane. So let's run that out a little bit more. And you can see when I don't know if you can just see my guidelines underneath. When I draw this line, I'm actually looking at that line. And that's the easy way to use the grid. All right, and let's add a little bit of width. So basically there's my simple first plane. This is just like we did with the transferring a side view into perspective. I don't have a side view that I'm referencing. I'm just going to make one up. So let's keep it pretty simple for this first one. We'll do something similar to that side view that we drew earlier. Let's do something like that. So a very similar line, starting tangent at the front, tangent to the top, tangent at the back, and then I'm going to go straight down to the ground plane. Okay, so that's the side view. So simple, draw a curve on a plane. Basically can't be wrong as long as your plane is in perspective. You're good to go. I know it is because I had a good perspective grid to start with. So the next step is to add more information. I always find it's easiest to draw nice shapes if you start with the long lines first and then add the shorter lines last. So let's define, let's see, let's just use that back guideline. So let's define the limit at that end, and let's define the limit at this end. I'm trying to move around this drawing so it stays straight on the camera for you, but I just can't do it. Got to move it around. It's so much easier to move the pad, and then I'll keep it in frame at least, but I'm going to spin it a little bit. So I'm just randomly drawing some lines that are coming directly from my perspective grid. I'm not really worried about where they're placed yet, although it would be really nice to have a guideline right here at our highest point. So maybe I'll add a vertical there, which means I'm going to need a section line here, which you've already read this chapter, so you already know what I'm doing. But I think it's always helpful to see these things in video form, real-time speed, and of course that's why we have all these videos linked to the book. So let's get another couple of guidelines. So wherever your line on the ground crosses, then take those lines up into your shape. So those are essentially going to be your sections. So those are my slicing it vertically, and those are intersecting where the lines on the ground slice it across in the X dimension. So this would be our X plane, and then looking from down the X axis, which is that direction. And now I'm going to draw the Z plane, which will be on the ground, and we're going to mirror that to the other side. So first I could set the limit, or I could draw the curve. It doesn't really matter which way you do it. Let's start by setting the width that I want. And now I'm just going to free draw the curve. Again, much easier for me to draw a nice curve if I spin this pad over. Let's make it narrow at the back. I know it's going to be the widest the tallest at this section line. I could either make it hit there so it's both the widest and the tallest along the same section, or we can make our shape a little different, a little more odd. Why don't we do that? Let's make this go out and hit tangent back here in top view. And then I'm going to make it narrower to the front. Okay. And then I'm going to curve my top view, and I want my top view to hit tangent to the center line in top view. So start right there at the center, tangent, and then come out, add the curve. So that's going to curve off like that. So that's 1/2 of our top view. So now I could add the X sections. So this would be my Z plane on the ground. I know it hits the widest point here, which is at a different spot than the height, which is fine. My only constraint when I draw this, as is mentioned in the book, is that where this line stops has to coordinate to that point. So it can go, you can do anything you want out here as long as you come back. So for instance, I could draw a line that does, whatever, could go all the way back there, but as long as it comes back to meet at this point. That's what matters, right? Because this is my side view. So I know that my section has to get back to the center line at some point. It can do whatever it wants out here, but eventually it's got to come back. Same here. It could go out, at the front, it could do this, and then curve. That's fine, right? And the mirror of that would look like a big heart shape. But I know I've got to eventually get back to my center line plane. So let's mirror this. Then we'll add some X. Let's add the X first because it's going to just get more cluttered as I mirror that. So why don't we add some X sections? What I like to do when I add the X sections, I like to go to the top of each section location and draw a little light guideline. This is going to my left vanishing point, and the reason for that is that it's very easy to mess up and not make that line as it crosses, just as it crosses over the center line. So if I have a nice round shape, let's look at front view for instance. Here's the ground, right? Here's my Y plane, which is my side view is Y, right? Looking along the X axis. I think I might have messed that up earlier, not to confuse you. What's even more confusing is that certain 3D programs have it flipped, so it doesn't really in the end matter as long as you know you have 3 axes and 3 planes. So let's say my curve is going to go up like this, and then I want it to hit tangent right here, and it's going to go on to the other side. To get that to be perfectly tangent, it's nice to have a little guideline so that I don't accidentally draw up and over in something like this, right? Or the opposite of that. So go back to the shape. Okay, so I want to draw those X sections. So I have my little guideline, tangent here, and I know it has to hit here. So I have to end my X section at the intersection, right, of these section locations where they're intersecting my Z-plane. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. And then it has to go from here up to here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. Oh, and 6. And 1 at the very back. So they can make any shape you want. Those are your only constraints. It has to leave from there, end up going to there. I'm going to try and just do nice smooth curves. Keep this one simple. Of course, it's going to get more complex later. You'll see I'm going to draw it upside down. And the reason I'm drawing it upside down, it's easier for me to leave, vertical. So just like I drew a little line across the top, I also like to draw little verticals sometimes at these locations. And it's just easier for me to draw this curve. This curve hitting just tangent. Okay, and heading down to that point. And I have my little guideline there, right, if I don't want to overlap that. Okay, so it's there to remind me. And same here, hitting just tangent right at center line. Okay, so I'll do the same here. I start tangent. I need to imagine where the curve's going to go, and then I need to maybe add a little bit longer guideline. I don't want to go out beyond that, so, and then I have a curve there. So you kind of very lightly draw those in, and then connect and finish the curve. Like so. Okay, so I'm going to just keep going now and drawing these curves. So it's kind of like two curves in a way. I set this curve. I know it's leaning inward a little bit, away from that vertical line. Right, and then I know that this one is coming out tangent, and I want to connect it. Takes a little practice, like all things worth doing, right? Worth doing to a high level anyway. So there we go. Some nice smooth transitions from one plane to the other. Okay, and there we've got it. So we have 1/2 our shape. We've just drawn the X sections, right? If I define that here with a little plane, just cross-hatch it, there's a little plane right there. And it has a curve, and now I just want to mirror that to the other side. So we've already done mirroring, so I'm just going to go a little quicker here and assume that you have already watched that video and read that part of the book. And so let's speed up this part. Okay, the very last step is to draw the silhouette. So the silhouette's going to leave and touch tangent. It's going to touch tangent to all the sections we've drawn. So the very last line. So it's going to come along here on the Z section on the ground. It's going to leave and go up and touch tangent to the first section. A common mistake is to just draw that line too straight. But look at your center line when you draw this one. Okay, and so it's a blend between the center line and that first section. And it just continues right on up. So looking ahead, the next section, number 2, and then it's going to go here, hit tangent, 3, 4. And now it's going to come back down to 5, and you see 5 is starting to go just behind the center line. So at a certain point, our silhouette line becomes the center line. So here it's going to get really straight, and then it becomes the center line for a moment, and then it wraps back down this guy here and then along the ground. So maybe we'll just quick highlight that with a little bit of orange. So there's my silhouette, and typically this is the line you make the heaviest to try and see the overall form. But the beauty of section drawing is that I didn't have to guess at that line, because it's a difficult combination actually of this top view and this side view, right, combined together, right, with these X sections to give me that silhouette. So I'm not guessing at the silhouette, just drawing it, right, based on what the sections tell me it should be. And that becomes our drawing method to drawing extremely complex shapes. We don't have to guess, we just have to drop a couple sections in there, and that will help us solve all those problems. So let's move into looking at a couple more constructions from this chapter. Okay, this is a quick recap of page 89, the two curve combo. And so I have already drawn a side view and one half of the top view. And what I'd like to do now is I would like to know, what does the combination of these two curves look like? So all I need to do is I need to project them into each other. So at the location of where all these sections, these X sections cut across here, and what I need to do is look to my top view, find points of intersection, and then I need just to project those straight up. Okay, so I'm going to try and do that. That's step number one. Actually, you know, you could go in different directions. You don't have to go up first. You could go out from the center line first. Doesn't really matter. So in this case, I'm just going up high enough so that when I project out from the center line, right, the y-plane here, I can go into those verticals. So now I just need to look at each section. So it goes over, hits the center line, and then it goes up, and then it hits my center line curve. So each one of these guys goes up, like so, and at the very back, and they hit my center line. And all I need to do is project outward. I'm going to spin the pad here a little bit so it makes my sketching a little more accurate. Okay, so just project out, so across the top and out until I hit that vertical. That's all you need to do. And you're going to get points in space, and those points in space will be where we need to draw our curve in perspective. So just looking at my grid underneath, and point, 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 point. Okay. So now we can draw the curve. So the resulting curve is going to go from here, here, through there, 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 and back to there. So let's just draw that. So I draw very lightly first. Make little small course corrections. To try and precisely draw that curve. And let's spin it around because this curve is much easier for me to draw that direction. So it's still positive here, and then it's got to start to bend down to the front. Okay, so there we go. We've done a combination curve, right? It's a combination of two curves, the top view and the side view. And what makes these especially tricky to predict is how different they're going to look on the other side. And I'm just going to quickly guess at it. I'm not going to do a proper mirroring of this. I'm just going to estimate that point on the far side a little bit less than the near side. And something about there. Something about there maybe. And then I know when I draw through those points, it's going to be a smooth curve as well. So if they're off a little bit, I'll just estimate when I draw the curve. Looks good. Okay, so there are my points. I've just guessed at them. And let's try to draw lightly first. So I know we've got to get through here. Okay, and this guy's going to get it out and around this one through to there. Through there. So it looks like one of my points is probably off. This one's probably not quite wide enough maybe. And then back to there. So I always love doing these because they're kind of one, they're puzzles, and that's like a lot of perspective drawing is sort of problem solving. And so I think that's why I enjoy it, and I enjoyed sort of the puzzle factor, which is finding ways to construct complex forms, complex curves. And what's cool about this is that's a really simple construction, right? But the result is actually quite complex. You have curves bending in two directions at the same time, being influenced by two different views. And you're going to see these two curve combos all the time in objects, anything that's symmetrical and has, design lines and things. This is a very, very common construction to run into in perspective for all sorts of products and furniture and you name it. There's all sorts of things. Let's say we don't see through the other side in this case, so I'll just do this square-ish section at the front, this rectangle. And maybe this is the silhouette line back here. It's just straight up. I should spin that around, draw that with my arm instead of my fingers, make it a little better line. But anyway, that's the two curve combo recap that's happening on page 89. And hope that helps. So this is a little recap of page 9091 from this XYZ section drawing chapter. So we cut some volumes here. So I'm going to grab an ellipse guide and throw so here's what I have. I've got a vertical wall with these vertical sections right at the back of this shape. And then I've got these curved sections. And the top view is here. It also has another line cut through it here. So it's just like another top view that's been lifted up through that shape. And maybe we'll cut another one of those. I'm sure actually we're going to cut a couple of those probably. So first one I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a circle in perspective on that back wall. So let's see, I'm just trying to place it so it's going to cut through and where it's going to show up over here. Let's see, let's lift it up maybe just a little bit more. Let's see, that would cut there. So we'll have our hole over here, and let's go up even a little bit higher. Okay, so my minor axis is there. I'm not going to cover ellipses in this one because we've already covered that in other tutorials, other demos. So that's my hole, and it's on the vertical wall on the back. And what you want to do is you just want to look and see where it crosses those sections. So here it crosses this section here. See, there's the vertical line crossing, and then here again. What about the back one? Crosses there, and then there. So I only have 4 points that are kind of, gimmies in a way. Actually, take it back, I have 6, because I see it here, it crosses that line on the back, and then if you follow that line out, projecting it straight out, it's kind of like, just projecting it over here and here. And if I project that over, okay, and project it out here, I get points, and that's how this curve is drawn, right? Which you know from reading those pages. And hopefully this will just clarify a few things as you watch me actually do the same sort of construction that's described on those pages. So all I'm doing is finding locations where it crosses the geometry they already have inside, and I'm transferring those using my guidelines going to my right vanishing point. So there's a point, transfer it out, there's the point on the surface. Here's a point on the back wall, transfer it out, there's a point on the surface. Right, here's a point on that line at the back, transfer it out. This is the same line, just curving. There's a point. What about at the bottom? There's a point. What about over here? There's another point. Okay? And I know it's here, here, there, and there. I actually have 6 points. It might be enough to draw that curve, but I also might want a couple more. So if I want one more set of points, maybe something through the middle here would be nice. Well, I have to draw a new section. So I'm going to slice this with a line to create a new section. And I can place that based on this, right? Thinking where I want it, or I could start out here, right? And then go in and then down and then back out. Sort of, you know, you just get comfortable with the direction you like to work. I always usually like to work from a vertical plane or the ground, one or the other. And the vertical plane is really nice to work from because it's like, you know, you have it in a lot of objects. So there's my vertical line, if this was mirrored, for instance, but that's a vertical plane, and then I'm going to project out. Right, these are lines going to my right vanishing point. There's a point. I'm going to go to my center plane, just like the ground is just elevated, so I'm just repeat the exact same construction. There's a point, and here's where it hits at the top. So now I can draw, when I draw this curve, I'm really looking at these two curves because I know it's going to be very similar. So I want to make a nice smooth shape, so I want to look at those when I draw this one. All right, feeling pretty good about that. So now find out where the circle crosses that vertical and draw out, again using guidelines that are going to my right vanishing point. So there's a point. Where does it hit the bottom? Right down here. So right about there is the bottom. Okay, we've got a lot of points now. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, the last two things that really help when cutting holes, I know that the line on this surface would be tangent, because since we're projecting straight across, would have to be tangent, like this is a cylinder. This is like cutting a wheel well into the side of a car, actually. It's the same construction. So I'm drawing actually a line here going to my right vanishing point that's tangent to the circle, right, or tangent to the ellipse on that center plane. I'm going to do the same up here. Now this one happens to be right at that point. Now, the reason I did that is that when I draw this curve out here on the surface, I know it cannot cross these two lines. Those are limits, right? Because this projects straight out. The curve can't go beyond it, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be projecting straight out. If I cross it here, right? If I have this shape go like that and I project in, it's not going to line up with that. So those are really nice limits to set. That's helpful. Okay, but I know it also has to tangent, so that helps me to draw the curve here out in space. So I know the curve needs to go through here and here, right? And I know it has to hit tangent to this guy, and draw these very lightly because they're easy to get lumpy, but you know it should be, you know, it's intersecting into a smooth curve surface, and it is a smooth curve itself, so you don't want a lot of lumps. Yeah, this is going to be a really tricky one right up through here. and then hitting tangent right there, going back to here. So I need a little bit more help. This is one of the harder constructions to do, is to draw ellipses punching holes into curved surfaces. It's going to hit, and then I know it's going to do this right there. And that's where that one has to hit, so it's got to hit tangent there. And then it's got to get back to here, so probably this guy's got to go here and then curve and then get back into this one. That's pretty gnarly right there. But we're getting it. Okay, and tangent to that line. Okay, and let's spin it around here so it's a little easier for me to draw. Just darkening it up now. Got one little lump there that could probably get finessed a little bit more, which is right there. It's probably this is probably out a little too far. So this is probably a little bit smoother, a little straighter. Maybe that's a little bit further back the other way. So if I was going to do an overlay and dial that in a little bit, that's how I'd fix it. But overall, not too bad. Okay, and since we just cut a hole in it, we can actually see through to the other side now. And here's the hole. And so this is very much the construction that's detailed on those 2 pages. And so if I was going to shade that in a little bit, this is the direction of the slice. So this guy is, that's the wall that we see if this was a continuous part of a cylinder that was cutting through. That's what we'd be left with. So I hope that's helpful and clarifies those pages a little bit more. Give it a try. Okay, this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to speed up this next section because it's going to be basically another XYZ section drawing example. Okay, so here's where I really wanted to start this demo for the very last part of this section, which is modification of an XYZ shape. So we've got a 2-curve combo, vertical sides, flat across the top, across the x-axis. There's our center line. And so now we would like to modify this. So I'm going to pull where the center line ends, I'm going to pull that forward a bit. That's going to change our top view a little, and I'm also going to lift it up. So I'm going to draw a new center line relative to the old one, but you know, doesn't really have any relation to it. You know what? Let's go up high, and then let's take it down low at the back. Why don't we do that? Okay, so that's my new center line. And now what I want to do is modify the sections going across. Before they're just going straight across. Now I've got to elevate those. Well, here it goes through the exact same point. Here it's going to go down. Here it's going to go down. And this one I'm going to extend up. This one goes up. And it goes forward. So from this point, I'm going to take this section and bend it. Oops, I went from the wrong spot. Found a mistake. Okay, so here's how you fix a mistake. Found this is the height at the front. The height at that section's right, but you can see I picked the wrong line here. When I drew this section, it should be right there. So here's the section height at the other side. So this line has to go through that point. Okay, and if you look through my books like Start Your Engines and those other books, you'll see like a little squiggle like that. And that's typically what I do when I make a mistake and I want to make a little mental note to ignore that line. So when I do an overlay, right, I know to ignore that one and go to this one. So there, I fixed it. And so that'll be the height at the front, and here it is extending forward. So I extend the top view, right? And now let's modify our sections going across. I'd like to give myself a little guideline again. Maybe I'll even go all the way across. Extend this position. So that's the plane that's going to sit in, so I have to draw a curve in there. And give myself a little guideline across the top of each section. Also, when you start to get more lines, this helps me to find them again, because it can be easy to get confused, as I did with the front. Okay, so let's modify that. And I'm going to make some new sections here, so we're going to just be able to see inside here. So it's going to bend downward. Let's draw the near side first. Let's see, this was the original. I noticed that line was off a little, so I adjusted that when I drew the curve. So let's just bend these guys upward a bit. And this one's going to stay flat, straight across. This one's got to go up, higher. So I'm going to bend that. And let's pull that downward. Okay, so that's where originally it was, and then it went up from there. Do the same for these guys across the top at the front. It's got to go to that line. I almost looked at that one. That's where you draw lightly first. Then you go and double check yourself and find that you're about to draw another incorrect line. You can tell it's my first drawing of the day today. Okay, so like so. And what about forward from there? Forward from there is going to be here to here. And let's see, you know what? I should probably redo that. This is going to make for a nasty, this is a good thing to think about. It's a good lesson here. So if you think about this in side view, right, we've got our shape. It's got a little bit of elevation at the front, more at the back. It's not going to be the exact same proportion, but you'll see what I'm going to get at here in just a minute. Let's think about our draft view. And what I did in perspective is I just pulled it forward from here when I redid the center line. That means it goes like this. So in side view, this line, our two curve combo line, comes down like so to a point, which is here, and then it just jets forward, right? And then I put in the new center line, which was up high, and then crossed somewhere in there, and then went low behind this line right here in side view. So this is my side. Okay, but this maybe is not the transition I want. Maybe if I want this line to be a smooth curve, right, in side view, or maybe I should extend it like this and then let my center line grow out of that. So the decision I make here, right, just by modifying the center line has great impact to the side view. So I really need to think about what do I want it to look like in side view when I draw this line. You know, if I wanted this to be a nice continuous line like this in side view, then I should go to my center line and I should extend it downward like that, not just pull it forward. If I wanted to have a kink there, so in side view it just went straight and then my two curve combo line and then here's my center line, if I want it to look like that, then I would do this, where I just pull it forward. So everything you draw here, effectively, remember, you're always drawing, basically, simultaneously you're drawing 3 views. You're basically drafting in perspective, side view, top view, right, etc. So, time for me to decide. Well, if I do this, and I want a nice smooth curve into that, I could drop it there, and then take the center line and bend it back down. Or I think I'll just leave it up and maybe not so attractive, but this is what we're going to get, like it's been cut on that angle. So let's just leave it at that. Really in the interest of having that drawing not get so many more lines in it. Okay, so that's what we'd end up with. And that's 1/2, and so I'll quickly mirror it over. I'll speed up for the mirroring part. Okay, so that's basically how you would modify, forgot one. That's basically how you would modify a center line, and then all the section lines need to be adjusted to go with it. So that's my new modified surface. So much like I did on the previous 5 pages in the book that led up to this demo, you can infinitely modify this. So if you want to just draw a line on the side of the shape here, you could do that. You could draw a line on the center line and then project it out to give you the result. So you can just, let's say we wanted to do that. Let's just draw a curve on there. Okay, you can just go ahead and do that. And if you needed to mirror that curve or know what it looks like in center line, you can always project from your outside surface back to the center line and vice versa. You could draw it on the center line and then come outward. So if I wanted to know what does that line look like on center, all I need to do is go to each section and project it over and find points right on the same vertical line. So here's my section plane. It goes down to the ground, over, back to center line, and up. And I'm just going to push this point over until I hit that vertical. And so I can just take my curved line that I just randomly drew, okay, back to center, and then here it hits the top view. So that's where it hits it on the ground. And now I could actually draw what does that curve look like inside view on the center line. And I know it's going to touch right down into there. So that's what it looks like on center. Okay, and here's what it looks like in perspective. It's not that big a difference, but you do see that there's a difference to this part of the curve especially as compared to here. And now we can go back in and we can start modifying our sections. So you might just start and say, well, I would like to have this line here move over to there. And you might just start that way and say, just draw one section and then connect it with a new top view. And have that top view maybe blend out to there. So we basically just cut off this whole section. This whole top view line is gone. And now we can just keep modifying our section lines. Here it's straight up, so no difference there, straight line. But then it starts tucking inside, right? Then it pops back out. And here I'm just sort of looking at the same angle and this angle, if I want it to be continuous. Maybe it's flattening out even more there. And then as we get out into here, it flattens, flattens, flattens. Right? And that's how you can start to sculpt and cut more details and cut more shapes into that surface. You could also grow shapes. I'm just going to make this line nice and heavy. That's easier to see. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and just quickly throw a little orange on that new surface so we can see it. Okay, so the orange here is the new surface that was just created by modifying those sections. All right, and so you can see how you can quickly get to very, very organic shapes without a lot of work, and just going one step at a time. You can draw on the shape and go sculpt in, or you could have started here and gone out. If I wanted a very precise shape here, like an ellipse, and then cut a hole like we did on the earlier part of this demo. So it's kind of infinite. Let's say that I wanted to wrap a graphic. This is going to get complicated soon because I'm starting to get a lot of lines in this drawing. But hopefully you've been able to follow along as each one is kind of step by step. What do I want to do here? Let's grow a shape upward. But I want a very precise shape. So I want to have a curve on the ground. Just trying to find some space to draw here. Or we can still see all the points. Okay, so there's a curve and I drew it on the ground plane. Okay, so ignore everything else, just think about the ground plane. And I'm going to look and see, well, here it crosses center. So go up, there's a point. And I want to project this up into my curved skin of the top of this shape that I'm building. And so I just go to the location of each section, right? Here's sections, right? We'll call this one 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So at section 2, it hits here, so I go up, there's a point. Okay, section 3 hits there, go up, and there's a point. And here, section 4 is actually down at that point right there. So now I can draw what does that look like, that little wedge, a little sort of crescent shape. Let's do what that curve looks like in the top of this skin. And there it is. And you can see how it's a straighter line than this curve, right? And that's because it's being influenced by the top curve. What if we mirror it over? If I mirror it over, I'm just going to estimate this gap, right, or that spacing on the other side, just a little bit less for foreshortening. So there, here, maybe a little bit less, and then back to that point. So now when I draw it over here, it looks something like this. Okay. So I've just took this line here on the ground, maybe add a little bit of highlight to that. So that line right there, up to here, up to there, right, up for at each section, just projecting, really simple. Gave me points, drew the line, I just mirrored the points to the other side, gave me another line. And now we could keep going, right? We could take this and we could modify our center line. And maybe my center line is now going to change and do something straight on top. And then it's going to blend back into my center line here. Okay. And so now I have this fin that sticks up. So I can go to each section, draw straight up. Like there are 3 sections that hit it. And now I'm going to add a little shape across the top of this. So maybe I'll define a little bit of a plane first. And let's do a shape, kind of a teardrop shape in top view. And I just drew the far side of it. Okay, and now add the width. So at each section where it crosses the center line, add the width. And then you can mirror it. And there's the mirrored points. Now I can draw the curve. I'm going to flip this over. And it makes it a little bit easier for me to draw that. A bit more precision. Okay, so there we've got this teardrop shape plane floating, not really floating, sticking on top of our vertical fin. And now I'm just going to drop straight down at each one of these section locations and then straight down off the silhouette. So that's probably where we'd see the silhouette on the far side, and then we'll just let it blend like there's a fillet running around here. And this guy on the far side section we'd maybe see just a little bit, and here it's just going to blend and go up. So I'm just putting a little bit of a kind of a blend or a fillet coming off of this line right here. So down and then blend. So I've just modified this section again. What would it look like on the other side? There. Where does the curve start? Right about here. So there's the blend on the far side. And then this one at the back is very skinny, both sides. And then I could start the curve here, for instance, and blend in and on the far side. Okay, and then that would be a fillet. So the fillet, the tangency of that fillet could run something like through here. So hopefully that makes sense. Here's the top of it. Okay, and then those lines come in. The silhouette just rides down that center line. And if I was going to apply my line weight strategy to this, right, this would overlap with a nice heavy line, and then it would fade by the time it got to that little pie shape there that it starts from. So I hope that helps. And maybe I'll just, I'm sorry, now I'm starting to think about sculpting and designing, so which this is not about yet. We're not supposed to be drawing actual objects yet, just trying to get a handle on XYZ section drawing. So I hope that helps. And that kind of wraps up this chapter.